The vast wealth of rice planters was wiped out in a flash in the mid-1860s by the outcome of the American Civil War. And that outcome was decided in no small part by a brutal battle fought in Bryan County in December of 1864 at a place called Fort McAllister. Constructed by slaves in the summer of 1861 on a spit of land known as Genesis Point, Fort McAllister was a simple earthen fortification. Fort McAllister was positioned to protect a key railroad junction, and its importance grew after other Confederate coastal fortifications were abandoned early in the war.
And when they abandoned the islands, the offshore islands, then Fort McAllister, or what was Genesis Point Battery at that time, suddenly was no longer a secondary position. It was on the front lines, and then that meant that it needed to be expanded and strengthened.
Soon the earthen fort faced the ferocity of the U.S. Navy's toughest kind of warship, the new ironclad Monitor. The Union fleet used Fort McAllister as a testing ground for the state-of-the-art warships on more than one occasion, even sending 3 monitors against the fort at one time on March 3, 1863. But the plucky little fort withstood every Union attack.
They bombarded the fort for over 8 hours. These 3 ironclads and 7 gunboats, and then brought up some mortar schooners and shelled them during the night with 13-inch mortars. The problem that they ran into was Fort McAllister is basically a dirt fort, sand. And that was part of what gave McAllister its resiliency, was the Northerners couldn't fire enough shells against the place to destroy it and drive the garrison out so they could pass the fort.
Each time that it was attacked by the ships, it was pretty much almost destroyed, and by the next morning it was rebuilt and brand new again, a little bit stronger.
When Fort McAllister fell to Union forces, it was not from an attack by the sea, but rather one from land. Union General William T. Sherman set out from Atlanta in November 1864 on a destructive march to the sea. Sherman's final goal was the city and port of Savannah, but first he needed to meet up with the Union Navy to resupply his troops. The only obstacle in Sherman's way was Fort McAllister. Sherman's troops began their attack on the afternoon of December 13th. With the Confederate defenders outnumbered 25-1, the outcome was never in doubt.
It only took 15 minutes for the assault to be completed. From the time they broke from the tree line to the time they were over the walls and in the fort was only 15 minutes.